Look, today we are going to completely demystify a concept that gets thrown around in, well, pretty much every single meeting, yet is fundamentally misunderstood by a shocking number of companies. I'm talking about product strategy. What does it actually mean? How do you build one that wins? And maybe most importantly, how do you stop confusing it with things that are definitely 100% not a strategy? Get ready, because we are going to break this down logically and give you the exact frameworks to take your product from just a list of features to a true market-dominating force. So let me ask you a slightly provocative question. Is your product strategy right now just a glorified to-do list? We really need to hold up a mirror here, because it is an incredibly common trap to confuse a list of upcoming projects or, a never-ending series of Jira tickets with actual strategic direction. If your strategy doc just lists out 40 things your team is going to build this year, you don't actually have a strategy. You just have a really long backlog. And that brings us to this absolutely brilliant quote from product expert Marty Kagan. He writes, "Bad product teams plod through roadmaps throughout the year and ship features." I mean, wow. This perfectly diagnoses the pain point so many incredibly smart teams face. They accidentally become feature factories. They get entirely output-focused, meaning they just care about shipping code, rather than being outcome-focused, which means actually solving real customer and business problems. If you're just plodding through a roadmap, you are completely missing the strategic why. To fix this, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. Number 1, the delivery trap. Number 2, the product strategy stack. Number 3, where to play. Number 4, how to win. And finally, number 5, good versus bad strategy. Let's dive in. Okay, Section 1, the delivery trap. Why do so many well-intentioned teams get so hopelessly bogged down, acting as feature factories? Well, it usually happens because teams conflate two very different concepts. Goals, like increase revenue by 5%, and strategy, which is how we actually create long-term value. Product leader Ravi Mehta points out that teams often say things like, "Oh, our strategy is to increase retention by 10%. But guys, that's just a metric. If you don't have a plan for exactly how you're going to achieve it, teams will just do anything and everything to move that number. Mehta notes this creates this really muddy, Vegas-style user experience, just full of flashing lights and disjointed features, all fighting for the user's attention, which ultimately destroys the long-term value of the product. Moving on to Section 2, the product strategy stack. We need a definitive framework here to separate your lofty company vision from tomorrow's literal bug fix. So what is it? Product strategy is quite literally the connective tissue between the overarching company vision and the day-to-day execution of your product roadmap. It's what brings those amorphous, kind of fluffy ambitions into sharp, actionable focus. You just cannot jump from a broad company mission straight into a roadmap. It doesn't work. Without that connective tissue of product strategy, your teams are just going to be completely rudderless. Let's see how this builds using Ravi Mehta's product strategy stack. Notice how each chronological layer absolutely must be defined before moving to the next. You start at the very top, company mission, the big change you want to bring to the world. Then company strategy, the logical plan to actually achieve it. Only then do we hit step 3, product strategy, which dictates how the product itself will drive that company strategy. That then feeds into step 4, the product roadmap, which is the sequence of features. And finally, step 5, product goals, the daily outcomes measuring your progress. If you try to reverse this, like setting goals first and expecting the roadmap and strategy to just magically appear out of thin air, you fall right back into that delivery trap. All right, Section 3, where to play. To build this connective tissue, we are going to lean on Roger Martin's legendary strategic choices. Under his Playing to Win framework, where to play involves deliberately choosing your target segments, your channels, and your specific market. On the flip side, how to win is your unique value proposition. And here's the kicker. Narrowing your focus on where to play is just as important as the mechanics of how you win. If you fail to narrow your focus, you succumb to a spread-thin strategy. You know the one, it yields totally mediocre results across way too many domains. You have to bravely choose exactly who you are building for and explicitly who you are not building for. Which perfectly tees up Section 4, how to win. How does a product actually achieve a massive competitive advantage in the space you just chose to play in? For this, we look at the DHM model by Gibson Biddle, who is the former VP of product at Netflix. DHM stands for Delight Customers, Hard to Copy, and Margin Enhancing.
As Biddle points out, you need to form high-level hypotheses around these three specific pillars. And the secret sauce here? If you successfully build hard-to-copy elements into your product, you find yourself in this magical place where you barely even have to think about the competition. You can just focus purely on delighting your users.
And to show you what that DHM model and product-led growth actually look like in the real world, just think about Netflix for a second. They built a massively hard-to-copy device ecosystem and content library. Or take Figma. They totally obliterated traditional design software barriers by putting their tool right in the browser, creating these multiplayer network effects that are incredibly hard for any competitor to replicate. And Stripe? They obsessed over the developer experience, turning their API documentation into a frictionless product all by itself. These aren't just cool features, folks. These are deliberate, strategic how-to-win choices that drove absolute exponential growth.
Finally, let's hit Section 5, Good versus Bad Strategy. It is officially time to audit your own company based on everything we've just learned.
Product leader Shreyas Doshi notes a really stark contrast here. A good strategy, it identifies target segments, acknowledges competition honestly, and highlights difficult trade-offs. It is firmly evidence-based. A bad strategy, conversely, reads kind of like a prayer. It uses fluffy, overly ambitious language, pretends the competition doesn't exist, and essentially provides a laundry list of 40 priorities, desperately attempting to be all things to all people. Good strategy requires the true bravery to say no. Bad strategy, it's basically the cowardice of saying yes to everything just to avoid conflict. I want to read this quote from Shreyas Doshi to really drive our ultimate point home today. A good product strategy is a clear articulation of how you will win in practice, in the real world, in the face of real competition and constraints. True strategy isn't a wish list. It is about making the really hard choices. It's an honest diagnosis of the market, the guiding policy of where you will play, and the coherent actions of how your product will be impossible to copy. Which leaves me with one final, very important question for you to ponder. If someone looked at your product roadmap right now, today, could they guess your strategy? Can they see exactly how you plan to win and where you've chosen to play? Or are you just guessing? Are you just plodding through features, crossing your fingers, and hoping something magically works? Take these frameworks back to your team. Audit your strategy stack and start making the hard choices that actually drive real market wins. Thanks so much for learning with me today in this explainer, and keep focusing on what matters.